So the Corolla GR. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Corolla GR and what the deal is with that. I don't have one to drive. I'm not driving a Corolla GR, but we were amazed when we heard about it. So, Mark and I decided to make that the chat for today.
Yeah, they already have the Corolla R going on. So yeah. I guess
Corolla R.
Didn't they have or RS? What the hell was it? They made like a 200 and some horsepower Corolla.
Oh, you're talking about the other thing, the Corolla. Ah, damn it! It's not coming to me. It's not the TRD, but it was that intermediate thing that they made the Matrix in the same trim package as well. It's on the tip of my tongue. But
I'll put it up on the screen or something. Yeah,
so it'll be down here somewhere. Or up there or over here. But the so the GR is really interesting because it's a 3-cylinder turbo, 300 horsepower, 271 foot-pounds of torque out of that little 3-cylinder Toyota engine, and it's really expensive and not available.
And 4-wheel drive.
And all-wheel drive, that's right. So the lower trim package, they're all 4-door. They're all kind of like what the Matrix IM was kind of thing, but Corolla E. And then they've put a better interior. Well, they have an interior in the lower model one. And if you go to the high-end Insane one, it's got a brace that goes where the rear seats go. And you have a 4-door car with no rear seats. So, that's kind of sacrificing a lot for performance at that point, but they've done a lot with that car, and it seems to be pretty crazy. Toyota's gotten a lot of flack for building cars that aren't theirs lately, that are performance oriented. So all the fun cars that Toyota has built in the last few years, the Scion FRS. Or what is it? The Scion FRS. Yeah, the Scion FRS is a Subaru BRZ, right? The
Toyota. Actually, I think in Japan they have a Toyota 86, so they actually manufactured that one. But
okay.
Yeah, it's split between the three of them.
Yeah, it was kind of a joint thing, but you end up with a Subaru engine that blows up at 200,000 kilometers. So I mean, it's kind of a Subaru to me. It's not really a Toyota.
It's got great numbers until then, though.
Right. And then the BMW Z4 Supra, right? That's basically what you're getting in a Supra now these days, the BMW Z4. So you get a really nice, really Japanese-looking German car. So the CEO of Toyota has decided that he's going to take a stance and actually build some fun cars. He looks like he's gone a little far with that because it's a Corolla and it starts at $48,000 Canadian, and you can't buy one; it's not available. I've already mentioned that, but I think it's very valid. They're limited production, and so they're awesome because they compete very much with your Golf Rs and probably your Golf GTI is probably a more accurate comparison. They compare with your Subaru WRX, those types of cars. Except you get a Toyota, and I tend to think that the real value there is that the Toyota will still be there long after those other cars will be gone, because their quality has been second to none for a long time, unless this new 3-cylinder engine that gets wrung out really hard all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, 100 horsepower per cylinder. That's
it's more than what Lamborghinis are making.
Oh, I think he's saying right now you can because it's after 7 or something.
Oh, okay. All right. That's why I was getting flashed. All right. The one time I can turn.
Yeah.
What was the other thing? Oh yeah, we're commenting on how the displacement is getting smaller in regular cars, right? As we're starting to scale down V8 engines, so the V8 engines and the V12 engines are going away. Ferrari's coming out with a twin turbo V6 this year. That's going to set a precedence. I don't know how reliable it's going to be again when you're running crap out of it. I don't know how long term that engine's going to stay around. Presumably quite a while, but I mean, we'll see. But a 3-cylinder that's hopped up to that level, that's a full-on race engine, really, if you think about it, in terms of its technology, that's full race 100 horsepower per cylinder. I mean, that's full-on craziness.
Yeah, I have to think, there'd be an advantage in lower parasitic drag with fewer cylinders. right? So it's kind of the opposite of the whole V12 thing. You don't have the heat management problems, you don't have the fuel economy problems, and if they're manufacturing things at a higher tolerance these days, then it kind of makes sense to move towards the stuff they've been doing in race cars. I mean, that was always kind of the idea with racing, is that, previewing the stuff that we may be able to afford to put into a passenger car in 10 years or whatever. So,
and it's lighter and less parts.
Yeah.
But, if you thought, timing was difficult on let's say a 5-cylinder or 4-cylinder engine, well, 4-cylinder is easy. 5-cylinder, a little less easy. Back to timing again for odd cylinders.
Yes.
I don't know if
is it going to be like a 120-degree crank? Or
I haven't seen those things. It's going to be, I'd imagine it's going to be a lot like the crank you'd find it. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how that engine's designed. We'll have to check that out. But the
H1 triple.
Yes.
What did that have? Did it have like a 90-degree crank, or it had something weird, like a 2-in-1 deal? I'll have to.
So H1 triple is a motorcycle, guys, that was built in the late '60s, early '70s. That was an air-cooled. That was an air-cooled. That was an air-cooled motorcycle that was 2-stroke, and it would put out a ton of power. So if you had a 750, it was the equivalent of having a big displacement bike, mind you, but at like big displacement, like 13 or 1400 at the time, but way up in the RPM range. Ah, cool, Volkswagen Sirocco. So ADD there, it's like, okay. And so Mark is saying, what does the crank look like on one of those? And I think similarly, it would be a lot like a triple jet ski, or even one of those things like, I'm sure it's a bearinged crank. It'll be the same as on a car, I'd imagine, but I don't think it's a flat plane crank or anything like that. That would be where there would be a surprise, right? They go full race with this engine to get every last bit out of it.
Although they might do it or they might have done it. Intersection is totally different. They might have done it on in the kind of the style of the Big Bang cranks that they had in MotoGP about 10 years ago.
Right.
Because they found that the Big Bang crank would fire 2 cylinders and 2 cylinders, so you wouldn't have a smooth 1 3 2 4 1 3 2 4 as the crank rotated. It would be 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4, or 1 and 3 2 and 4, right. And it would break traction earlier. But because it broke earlier, it was more predictable. So I wonder if for a car it wouldn't be relevant, but I wonder how that would compare to a bike where you could do like a 2-in-1, right? Where it would have kind of the Big Bang effect.
I don't know. But that car, in terms of spec, I've seen it go around the track now, is starting to be Ferrari fast, like old Ferrari fast around a track, and you're buying that in a street car. So it's pretty impressive. The few things I've seen on it in terms of interior quality and stuff like that. Fit and finish is Toyota. I mean, there's nothing fancy about it. You get in and it's doing everything it's supposed to do well, just like you would expect it of a Toyota. But it's doing it all very fast. So that's pretty cool. But my understanding on watching some other reviews and seeing some other things is that basically the car is a little bit understeery. If you're looking for a good feel out of a car, like not performance numbers, but if you like breaking the tail end loose, it doesn't do that well. If you like having really good steering feel and brake feel, it does that, but it does it in a neutered Toyota way, which you'd expect, right? The GTI does all the feel things better, although the GTI is now going to be a slower car for sure, compared to the Toyota Corolla GR. It's going to be a better car all around, like for feel and stuff. But in terms of reliability, if I had to spend $50,000 on a car, and I was looking at a fully optioned GTI, or maybe even a Golf R or something, if you're stepping up to that, I don't know, the Corolla GR might actually be a contender in that market.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I mean, the speed is undeniable. The all-wheel drive, especially on top of that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I don't know how they would be able to afford it, like weight budget wise. Do they have like a super light all-wheel drive system, or what,
in the Corolla?
Yeah.
Oh, in the Corolla, I don't know. I think that's made specifically for that car this year. But but what they did spend money on in terms of weight was the rear roof is composite. Well, actually, the roof is composite, and the rear hatch is all aluminum. So they use some really ultra light aluminum parts to get the weight down. So the all-wheel drive probably added to it, but they probably made up for some savings in body. Oh, the other thing they added was a whole bunch of welds. So, for instance, they doubled up on the welds in the Corolla and to make it stiffer, and in the Corolla GR, and the doubled up welds in the Corolla GR equate to all the welds that hold a Yaris together. So
wow.
so that's pretty impressive in itself, right? Like, that's pretty cool. So that's a lot more rigidity and stiffness from those from the whole car. So that's pretty. Now they do have a Yaris GR as well. Of course, they're not bringing it to North America, and it kind of makes sense that they don't, because North Americans are kind of silly in the sense that, you know, we couldn't have a Sirocco and a Corrado and a Golf here either, because we tend to buy best value. It's not necessarily about styling, or, you know, like what I mean is, the Yaris is a small and easier car to park, which isn't a problem in North America.
Right.
So in Europe, you're going to have people buying the Yaris GR, which has the same engine in it, but not quite as fast, because the suspension is not quite as good and the wheelbase isn't quite as good as in the Corolla, but still very fast car and very maneuverable. But it's not going to be as popular in North America because we like bigger cars. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's the decision. And it makes sense. It was kind of the same, kind of similar mentality when you had the Golf GTI sitting there, and you had the Corrado years ago sitting on the trim floor. The Corrado didn't sell because it was $2-3 grand more, but the Corrado was $2-3 grand more car. It had a much better interior. It handled better. It was a much nicer looking car. Like, it was elevated in terms of what it looked like compared to the Golf, right? Yeah. And I think the Corolla is very much in that case, except they're only going to give us the one chocolate flavor here in North America, and that's the one we have to eat. So you can have any Corolla GR you want, so long as it's Corolla GR, and have a nice day.
Well, and that's for the however many thousands or maybe hundreds of people are able to get their hands on one.
Right. That's going to be the next issue. I mean, I've seen some gouging already from dealerships here in Canada. You know, I saw one the other day that's sitting in Toronto. It's got 463 kilometers on it. It's the full-on, you know, crazy model with the, well, actually it's not. It's about the mid-level crazy model, so more performance. There's three models, right? There's the low. I don't forget. They got some weird names around them now. You guys comment down below.
One's Morizo.
Yeah, that's the high end.
Oh, okay, that's the one with the bracing in the back.
I think that's the one with the spoiler, and it's basically a full-on race car. And then they have the one that's below it, and it's the one that's below it, and we've seen that advertised for 70,000 Canadian. So that's well over MSRP, and that's what we're starting to see. Limited production car.
Were you saying that the same, like the base Corolla with the 6-speed was also hard to because the GR has stick.
Yep.
Which is nice.
Yep.
Right. Well, for those who like stick, like us.
Yep.
And they had the base, like the 2023. Was it a Corolla? Like the base Corolla.
Oh yeah. So 2022, when I wanted to go look at the base Corolla, because I was just looking at cheap transportation, you couldn't buy one. They just don't have one to buy. You know, like and mind you though, I've seen pre-orders for hybrid Corollas. If I want to buy one now, I can pre-order my hybrid. Again, they don't have one, but I can pre-order a hybrid Corolla now. I get Facebook advertising because I was interested in Corollas. So the Facebook is saying, hey, you should pre-order your hybrid Corolla, and I wouldn't do that. I think getting a little off topic. If I was going to buy a hybrid Corolla, I would buy the new Prius because it's a nicer looking car. The new Prius is beautiful. Really? Which I didn't expect to ever have come out of my mouth. Like, out of all these years, they've made such a it was bad enough that it was a Prius, right? Like, it's an EV. It was watered down Toyota. Not excited about it. But I never thought that they would actually make it nice. It's to the point where I actually like the styling of the new Prius. It's actually quite good. I haven't seen the interior. I've seen the external stuff, but the rear tail light treatment is much better. They've refined the way it looks in the front. It's going to have however many generations new EV system in it, and it's been proven to be a reliable. There's still some first gen friggin' Priuses.
Well, it's they were kind of the first ones to do a mass production hybrid car, so they'd be the ones to go to.
Right, and some of those are still bumping around. So so it's interesting. You know, I would probably buy a Prius before I bought a new Corolla.
How do they do for batteries?
Well, they tend to last a while. I think most of the batteries, the battery assists I've seen, generally last about 10 years. Right?
Oh, that's not too bad.
And it's an assistive battery, right? So
yeah, so it's not under as much charge.
I tend to think it's still let's call it. I don't know. I still think in today's money, it's going to look a lot like a $5,000 or $6,000 repair in 10 years. But when you consider that a Tesla is all battery, and at the end of 10 years, you're going to have to put 25 into it, and there's no basically, I've heard of guys who have had Honda Insights who have taken the battery out completely and run it on an all motor. You know, it's an assistive thing to save on fuel. So what I'm saying is there's still a car there at the end of 8 years.
Yeah.
Whereas, there's no car. It looks like a car, like the Tesla. It'll sit in your driveway. People go, ooh, you got a Tesla, but it's not going anywhere after 8 years unless you spend $25,000 on it. I know there's gonna be a lot of Tesla people out there that can say, I'm full of shit. I wanna, I'm going based on what I've seen. Like, I'm watching people who do repair, rich rebuilds. These guys, right? Like they're pretty honest about what they have and what they're buying, and even on the hybrid cars, there's people who don't do hybrid cars well, BMW. So people who don't build reliable cars well, BMW. So they build really wonderful cars to drive, some of the best ever, best technical stuff. You're going to be fast around the track. You're going to have really awesome stuff, but you're going to pay every bit of premium for driving that car. And when you look at the i8, which they made for a little while, which had again a little 3-banger in the back for something that looks like a supercar, right? A little 3-banger in the back, and the batteries, and they have nothing but kind of problems with that car. Like it just doesn't. But that's BMW.
BMW nowadays, at least.
Yeah, BMW nowadays. I mean, that's just it, right? Like, I mean, you could go buy yourself an X6M there, like Hoovy did recently, and and have all kinds of problems with it immediately because it's an X6M and it's ugly. So yeah, which actually he's not shy about mentioning either. But long story short, I think Toyota's doing well. I think they're headed in the right direction. They've got some fast cars, and they've got a really nice looking EV Prius. I think they should change the name. It's so nice. So we'll see what happens. And then there's another car they're releasing. So yeah, a big Toyota fan. For a guy that owns a Fiat, a smart car, a Saturn, and I'm pretty big.
But Camry, Toyota in the family.
There's a Camry around, yeah. My wife drives a Camry because I don't want to fix the Camry, and so far it's been good for them. So
I just wonder what they could do about the suspension. Well, I guess the same thing that makes them boring makes them not as rumbly, not as much stress on the parts. I'm sure that contributes to the reliability.
Well, that's just it, the smoothness of it, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. Is the cars are well balanced, and But with that said, I think suspension geometry has a lot to do with it. You look at suspension on again, I'm going to pick on BMW, but you look at a suspension on a BMW, you're like, what the hell? But it drives so well. Mm-hmm. It's a really good driving car. But it wears out every friggin' part in 140K, right?
The German cars in general seem to do that. So I guess they're used to having buttery, smooth Autobahn roads.
Well, yeah, but they always have a lot of negative camber, right? And so they're wearing things. They're hard on those parts. Just the geometry of the thing tends to be hard on it to get it to feel good. So that's the problem, right? I've never seen a Jetta with that big of a CB antenna on it. That is something.
Yeah, that's something, all right.
Wow, it's pretty special. So yeah, that's what I think about the Toyota GR. I think it's going to be a winner. I think they're going to sell a buttload of them.
Well, as many buttloads as they manufacture.
Yeah, as many as they make.
Well, I mean, hopefully this is kind of a test case going forward where they could make more of these. Because also, it's a 3-cylinder engine. Tolerances aside, they'd be saving a lot of costs by making a 3-cylinder engine versus a 4 or 6 or an 8.
Yep. I totally think that's the case as well. I think there's going to be a lot of savings. They're definitely smart in the way that they're manufacturing that. And if you're not driving it, like, well, you're going to drive it. Most of those are going to be driven to 7,000 RPM, I'm sure. But if you're not driving it crazy, it might be a really efficient car. It might be surprisingly efficient.
Yeah, well, I think, again, it would fall into the kind of European hot hatch territory where they go for like the 1.3 or the 1.5 with a small high-efficiency turbo or something like that. So I think that philosophy is kind of taking over with the cost of everything.
The other cool bit on that car as well is that it has adjustable limited slip differentials from inside that you can just sort of key on.
Yes, that's wild.
Turn the switch. You've got a weight power distribution. Front and rear. You can have like 30/70. I think is the maximum bias. So you can change that up on the fly. There's a lot of stuff that's tactile within the car, so you can flick switches and stuff, which is nice. It's not all video games. So I think they've done some good stuff as far as like race car type stuff is concerned. Like if you actually want to get in and drive this car and feel it, they've definitely done some stuff that you wouldn't expect. And I think the simpler that stuff is, the better it makes the car. I love the 6-speed gearbox. I love the fact that the switches are like click click and things are turned on. It's quick. You're not having to stop the car to put it to lock differentials or whatever. Well, you're not locking differentials, but changing the limited slip on and off, this kind of thing. You just drive it, you click the switch, and it goes. And I tend to think that's what you're going to expect out of that car for a very long time, because Toyota, that's what they do well.
Yeah, I think Toyota's the only car manufacturer today that if they're doing something different from everybody else, I trust Toyota over everybody else.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, how many car companies are still family owned, right? That's the thing too. This is a family-owned company. I tend to think that has a lot to do with the quality and the reputation, probably pride when they build their product. They've been doing it for a while, ever since the mid-90s. I mean, Frank, you could still find in Ottawa, with all the salt we have here in Canada, you can find a rusty Corolla from '94, and it's still going to go down the road. That's amazing. Ever since that time, they've really stepped up their game. A little bit before that, though, the body panels were pretty thin and things were getting pretty bad. But they stepped up their game in the '90s for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, well, there's a reason that pretty much everybody in Africa drives a Toyota.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody in the military, right? A lot of special forces guys swear by Land Cruisers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's
absolutely.
a reason for that.
Yeah. So, long story short, Toyota GR, we like it. Toyota, keep making. That's a 2 thumbs up. A Siskel and Ebert review, I guess, but that's 2 thumbs up from Peasant Garage on the GR, and that's all I have to say about it. But hopefully, one of these days, I get to drive one. I've driven the Golf R. I love it, the older one, and I'd love to drive an R32. By the way, if anybody's got one out there that I can go for a spin, that'd be great. All right, that's it. Well, thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and have a great day.